a lot of people live in fear of that. And so my big purpose is to help as many people as possible realize that whatever happens to you, whether it's in my case, getting laid off or a divorce, which also happened to me, we're bigger than any one thing happening to us at one time. And so when we can realize that we're not at the effect of our self-worth based on getting a sale, losing a job, getting divorced, whatever it is that's happening, that we are bigger than all of it. And that's what allows us to not go up and down the self-esteem roller coaster, that our self-esteem stays consistent. And that's my purpose, to tell people to think of themselves as storytellers. And once you have that mindset, you're the director of your own life. And that's what allows you to not stay stuck. And if you're in a bad situation, you can yell cut like a movie director does, change the location, change the scene, and tell yourself a different story.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunit, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, John Livesay. Now, he is known as the Pitch Whisperer. He's an incredible keynote speaker. He even did a TEDx called Be the Lifeguard of Your Own Life with over 100 million views, and he was on Larry King. I mean, this man needs no introduction. The accolades are goes on and on and on. The list is gone long, but he is really, really motivated to help companies turn around sales teams to compelling case studies so that they can continue to grow and scale their businesses. So it's really an honor to have him on the show. So with no further ado, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love the topic of a best morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I mean, I think it's a foundation to getting your day started right so that you can continue to show up to do what you do. So I'm looking forward to hearing about yours personally. Tell us about your journey so far. I know you just have a book that Revenue Rockstar Mastery, and we want to hear about that as well. So go ahead, fill us in.
Well, my latest book is called The Sale is in the Tail, and it's a business fable set here in Austin where I live. And it's a story about storytelling. And having been in the corporate world for many years, selling advertising for Condé Nast, as well as multi-million-dollar mainframe computers, I realized that so many of us are on a self-esteem roller coaster where we only feel good if things are going well and bad if they're not. And I actually got laid off in 2008 when the mortgage crisis hit. And I realized I'd lost my job, but not my identity.
Yeah.
And now where so many people being laid off is in the headlines, a lot of people live in fear of that. And so my big purpose is to help as many people as possible realize that whatever happens to you, whether it's in my case, getting laid off or a divorce, which also happened to me, we're bigger than any one thing happening to us at one time. And so when we can realize that we're not at the effect of our self-worth based on getting a sale, losing a job, getting divorced, whatever it is that's happening, that we are bigger than all of it. And that's what allows us to not go up and down the self-esteem roller coaster, that our self-esteem stays consistent. And that's my purpose, to tell people to think of themselves as storytellers. And once you have that mindset, you're the director of your own life. And that's what allows you to not stay stuck. And if you're in a bad situation, you can yell cut like a movie director does, change the location, change the scene, and tell yourself a different story.
That's refreshing. Refreshing to hear. You don't have to succumb to the seesaw of life, right? Because the bad days are gonna come. You just need to know that it's temporary. Just like the sunrise, the sea will go
Exactly.
down, rise up again the next day. That's refreshing.
Mm-hmm. And one
So
of my
that,
favorite quotes is all about, our mood it doesn't have, it's just clouds, and the rest is just weather. And so if you have that mindset, when a storm comes, this is just weather. And nobody ever think, no matter how bad the storm is, snow or rain or whatever, you don't think this is never going to end.
Mm-hmm.
You just go, this is just weather.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And so tell us about, it sounds like a lot of it is mindset. So your book is about storytelling, and I know that can be critical in terms of branding and getting a
Mhm.
message across. But storytelling it's not as easy. It doesn't come easy to everyone. Even
Yeah.
I myself struggle with it because you want to tap into the emotion. You want to find the hero's journey. You
Mm,
want to find the climax and then solve the problem. I
exactly.
mean, it's a lot that goes into it. So tell us about how
Yeah.
you've helped people be able to tap into the storytelling
Well, the
ability.
good news is you don't have to be this gifted storyteller to learn how to become a good one. It's not like you're never going to be the next Serena Williams. You can't play tennis, or you're never going to be a Broadway star because you can't sing or dance. Storytelling's in our DNA. And so once you learn a certain structure of what makes a good story, you can have a little checklist and you can start practicing your stories with your friends and coworkers and saying, is this clear? Is it concise? And is it compelling? Those are my
Mm-hmm.
3 C's. So if you confuse somebody with a bunch of acronyms, they're not going to tell you they're confused. They're just going to say, no, thanks. If Why does it need to be concise? So you want people to be able to remember your story and repeat it to other people.
Yeah.
If it's too long and it just goes on and on with no point, nobody remembers those stories. And then finally, is it compelling? We have to tug at people's heartstrings to get this emotional connection. If the story doesn't have some high stakes in it, then we don't care about the story. So let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with Olympus Medical, the camera company that makes medical devices, and they said, oh, we have this equipment, makes surgeries go 30% faster. We're telling the doctors that, and we're just not getting a lot of yeses. It's so logical. We don't know what's going on. I go, well, part of the reason is people buy emotionally and then back it up with logic. So we turned that one fact, 30% faster, into this case story. Imagine how happy Dr. Higgins was down at Long Beach Memorial using this equipment when he could go out to the patient's family an hour earlier than expected. And if you've ever waited for someone you love to come out of surgery, you know every minute feels like an hour. And the doctor comes out and says, good news, the scope shows they don't have cancer, they're going to be fine. And then turns to the rep and says, this is why I became a doctor, for moments like this. Now that salesperson tells that story to another doctor at another hospital who sees themselves in the story so much, they say, that's why I became a doctor. I want your equipment too. So that is the through line. The story's not very long. It's clear. We know where it is. We know who it, we it's concise and it's compelling. We have some emotion in there. And that's the example of turning a fact into a story that makes people want to remember it and repeat it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be lengthy, and you can reuse it over and over again.
Yes. Now, some of the mistakes people make is they think, okay, I'm going to tell a story. So that must mean I'm the hero of the story, right? And I go,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're not the hero. You're a Sherpa helping someone climb Mount Everest or Yoda in Star Wars. The hero of the story is the client that you're helping. And because the goal is to get your new potential client to see themselves in that story. And so once you have that as your framework, you say, okay, so the first step is the exposition, the who, what, where, when. You got to paint the picture to get us in.
Yeah.
Then you got to describe the problem. And in this case, it's the patient's family waiting. And you see how I pulled you in by saying, if you've ever waited, and even if you haven't had to wait for someone you love, you can imagine, or someone who had to go through that. And then the third step is the solution. The doctor comes out and says, good news. And then the secret sauce to a really great story is the resolution. What is life like after? And you'll see how I use the doctor's dialogue in present tense. So it seems like you're eavesdropping to that conversation. This is why I became a doctor. Without that resolution to the story wouldn't have the impact. Imagine if The Wizard of Oz ended when Dorothy got in the balloon to come back, the end. But no,
Mm-hmm.
there's that wonderful resolution scene where she's like, oh my God, there's no place like home. And you were there and you were there. That's why that story is a classic. So if you want your stories to really resonate and have an emotional connection, make sure you have all 4 parts but especially a great resolution.
Hmm. Well, but I'm over taking mental notes. Thank you for sharing that. It's really good to know because we get so caught up, especially in sales and as a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
focus on the product, the features of the
Mm,
product, and not so much the problem via solution, and also being able to tell a story. That's the next level.
yes.
That's the
And
next
also we
level.
need to tell our own personal story. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to establish rapport, talk about where do you live? What's the weather? Let's talk about sports. A much more meaningful way to establish rapport with someone is to share your own personal story of origin. I was working with an architect firm and I said, how did you get into architecture? And the guy said, well, I was 10 years old playing with Legos. Now I have a son that's 11. I still play with Legos with him. I'm passionate about that. I said, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Sue? She's like, well, most girls dreamed of going to Disneyland when they were a kid. I begged my parents to take me downtown to see skyscrapers. So it's been in my passion, my whole, so we get a sense of who you are and then ask your potential client, how'd you get into this? Whatever their field is. And they'll say, well, my dad was this, or my mom did it, or I sort of fell into it, but I really love it, or whatever. That's a great way to connect with people. Start with your own story of origin and ask about theirs.
Mm-hmm. And then do you find that embedding that in the pitch will actually give them more of a green light when talking to investors again?
Yeah. Well, we invest in people we trust and know and like.
Like,
Yeah.
mhm,
The old way is, in order to get someone to buy from you, hire you, invest in you, you got to get people to know, like, and trust you. The problem with that belief is you go, okay, so you need to get to know me and my company and my product. Let me send you one more email with more facts. Right. And so I say we start with trust, flip the script. It's a gut thing. Is this email safe to open? Did I get a warm introduction? Am I getting eye contact from you? All those things. And then it goes from the gut to the heart. Do I like you? Are you showing empathy for what keeping me up at night? What my pain? Do you describe my struggles in such a way that I think you must have my solution? And then it goes from the gut to the heart to the head. And here's the unspoken question everybody has. Will this work for me? They might trust and like you, but if they don't think it's going to work for them, they're like, I'm still not buying. I'm not hiring you. I'm not investing.
mhm,
And that's where
mhm,
the storytelling really kicks in. Because if you've told a story that they see themselves in, then they go, yeah, this is going to work for me too.
mhm. Yeah, well put. I imagine, John, that it's very easy for you to like put a story together. It's very easy for you to like come with an entrepreneur or a company and kind of help them identify how to relay that message.
Well, I've been doing it for a number of years and it's like anything else, right? You get a skill, you keep practicing it and honing it, and then it becomes part of second nature. It's like a friend of mine who's a photographer. She says sometimes people come up to her and go, what a beautiful picture. What camera did you use? And she goes, nobody ever asked a chef, what oven did you make this on? And so whatever your
Mhm.
skill set is, it requires training and refining and practicing over and over again. And that's what the same thing is true with stories.
Yeah, and that's beautiful to hear. Tell us how can entrepreneurs back to the pitch idea and pitching their ideas and putting a
Mhm.
pitch deck together. What can some of the things that they can do to actually get the green light, get the go ahead on their, get confirmation on their ideas, get people on board, buy-in per se.
Well, it starts with your story. Why are you committed to this? And instead of saying I'm someone who's got a lot of grit and tenacity, tell us a story of a situation and show us your grit and tenacity. I remember working with one client who said, in my culture, um, it was, in South America, we would get not dropped off naked in the Amazon jungle to survive for 2 weeks as a passage into manhood. And, I said, you tell that story to a potential investor, they're going to say, well, that guy survived the
Mhm.
Amazon jungle. He'll survive any concrete jungle of business.
Right.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. That's good to know. Showcase that grit instead of just stating it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now let's talk about some of the well, let's talk about your morning routine, right? I'm curious. I want to
Yes.
hear about how do you get up, dress up, and show up because uh,
Well, when I'm home versus when I'm a sales keynote speaker, um, I get up in time. My phone, first of all, is not in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So the alarm is in the bathroom where I have to literally get out of bed and turn it off. I still don't look at it. I just turn it off. And I do a gratitude practice of everything that happened yesterday that I'm grateful for, at least 3 to 5 things. And I'm reliving the best of yesterday in my head before I start the new day.
Yeah.
And then I set my intention for what do I want to have happen? How can I be of service today? What's the best outcome that could happen? And then stay flexible. And then I get into this sort of mantra of um, doing some breathing exercises
Mm-hmm.
to get myself centered. And I have a whole thing of where I'm safe, I'm serene, and strong. And once, because so many of us are in fight or flight mode because we don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think if we ground ourselves with feeling safe, as opposed to reading scary headlines in the news first thing, we start that baseline of, no, I'm safe. The universe is a safe place. I'm safe right now. All right. So I'm safe, serene. That's telling my body and my brain we're at peace. We're not anxious. And then finally, strong, a sense of invincibility. I am not somebody who's easily knocked over with the first no or the first problem or the first challenge. Whatever happens today, I am strong enough to handle it. And then I'll do some stretching. I have a whole series of stretches that I do to get everything woken up. And then I usually take my dog out for a walk and get out in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll check my emails.
So what time are you getting up?
Usually around 7, obviously much earlier if I have to be downstairs at a ballroom to give a keynote that morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not wicked early. 7 o'clock is
Yeah.
manage is doable. It's what works for you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And
Not
my
the
first
five.
call is not usually till 9 if it's a Zoom call or whatever it is. So that gives me a nice little window of time to get myself centered, woken up outside, get some exercise, stretching in, um, and go from there.
Yeah, what you said about the affirmations, it's true. We do like that cortisol, adrenal fatigue is born out of that, right? That chronic stress. It just kind of gets built up day in and day
Mm-hmm.
out, and we don't manage it, and so we are at a fight or flight
Yeah.
mode. And for you, just those three statements really kind of bring you and get you grounded, and that's crucial. Affirmations are powerful because we have to
Yes.
reprogram the mind every day.
Every day.
You got to
Otherwise, we
keep
let
doing the
it.
work.
Yeah. It's like being the movie director of your own life and you're not paying attention, then the story just goes off on whatever tangent it wants. And you can start playing worst case scenario, playing out a horror movie in your head of what the future is going to be. Oh my gosh, I didn't hear back from this person. Do they not like me?
Yeah.
Making up all these things as opposed to being comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
Between when you make a pitch and when you get a yes or no, that whole, how comfortable are you in that space waiting for the answer? We'll get back to you. We got 2 other people to interview or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Or not taking things personally. One of the favorite things from the 4 agreements, right? Oh, they rescheduled me because they're busy. Well, you can make up a story that you're not valuable. Your time isn't valuable. You're not a priority. Or you can just say, I'm in the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that things are happening at the right time for me. That things are always working out for me. So whether I get
Yeah.
this or not, I'm not attached to it. And therefore I hold things lightly. My self-esteem is not tied to this person. My source of income and my source of abundance is not tied to this one job or this one situation. If it works, fantastic. And we'll stay in it as long as it works.
Yeah.
But I'm not coming from a place of desperation.
Yeah. And you tied it back around beautifully because you're not a seesaw, right? You don't let the everyday situation just dictate who you are
Yeah.
or your confidence level. But I am a firm believer as well that when you are in that gray area, like say the example you use, you're waiting for a yes from the pitch, you
Mm,
can actually somehow help determine the decision, because if you're freaking out about it, like I'm not worthy, this is not
yeah.
going to happen. I don't know if it's like energy. I don't know what happens in that
Right.
space, But like those train of thoughts can actually affect the outcome,
Big
the
time.
result.
Yeah. Well, it's all energy. Remember, money is energy. I remember when my speaking agent emailed me, congratulations, they picked you as their next storytelling keynote speaker. They liked your energy on the interview. I'm like, wow, there it is, that clear. They liked your energy. She says, yeah, you made me feel good. I figured if you could make me feel good, you'd make 500 people in a ballroom feel good.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately what people decide. Same thing with when investing in a startup. Do I want to be around you? Right? I worked with an architecture firm. They were flat out told, you're in the final three, and we're going to pick the firm we like the most because it's a 5-year project. You could all do the work. And that's why soft skills make you strong. And a lot of people go, wait a minute, how can something soft make me strong? You've got your hard skills, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, architect, tech person, whatever it is. But the soft skills, listening, empathy, and storytelling, when you bring those three things combined, that's where you get the emotional connection and your career takes off.
Yeah, well said, John. Tell us, where can we find you? How can we connect with you? Find your books?
My book, The Sale is in the Tail, is on Amazon. If anybody wants the first chapter for free, you can take out your phone and text the word pitch, Pitch, to 66866, and you get the first chapter for free. My website is my name, John Livesay, L-I-V as in Victor, E-S-A-Y. If you can't remember any of that, just Google The Pitch Whisperer and all my content shows up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for sharing. It's been such a delight having you on and hearing and sharing your energy this morning.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.